Hi friends, and welcome to one more session of Nitco Talks. Today we have three amazing architects, and they're all from Bombay Scottish School. For those who are not from Bombay, don't know about the Bombay Scottish School, it is probably the best school in the city of Mumbai, and they're all from the same school. How amazing is that? Let me do the introduction. Alan Abraham is the joint principal architect of Abraham John Architects. Alan is both an architect and a photographer. Alan has also been working on urban design solutions to improve Mumbai and make it a more livable, green, eco-friendly city through proactive initiatives such as the Bombay Greenway project, winner of the International Urban Planning and Design Competition, Velocity 2013 in Austria. Bobby Mukherji was only 25 when he won the Ambi Valley City project in Khandala, Lonavala, Khandala. Not every young entrepreneur can share that one of their earliest projects was a 10,000 acre township, a first of its kind in India, and that would go on to win several awards. While his practice, Bobby Mukherji and Associates, has evolved since 1993, his design philosophy is still guided by a blend of innovation, practicality, and superlative design aesthetics. Salil Ranadive has been in practice for near 30 years and has successfully completed more than 450 projects with built works of over 175 lakh square feet spread across more than 1,600 acres. Integrated townships, urban regeneration, staff housing, corporate campuses, residential complexes, schools, hostels, and medical facilities, etc. How amazing a panel we have here today. First question to Alan. This time what we're going to do is we've got all the panelists showing us their work. So to make it a little more exciting especially for our participants, our attendees. But first a question to Alan. Alan, with the current situation, is there something that you're going to change in your work that would help us post getting out of the current situation, assuming that this kind of a thing can always happen again?
Hi, Vivek. Thank you so much for having us on. The situation is abnormal, as in it's the first time that I've experienced a lockdown. So I guess it's something that even my parents haven't experienced. So it is something that's unique. And I'm sure people are going to react to it in different ways, though I think India is too complex to kind of gauge exactly what might happen in future. We will go back to crowding for sure. Distancing will be something that we will aim for and achieve only in certain sectors, in certain places like urban areas. In terms of practice, I don't know, because we're largely dependent on migrant labor for all our works. We can draw, we can design, we can't build. We're kind of useless, you know. So we need other people, we need craftsmen, we need people to collaborate. And most societies today are keeping people out, the labor, the people, because of all the issues that are there. So I think it'll take a long time to kind of normalize.
Thanks. And Bobby?
At least about in my opinion. I don't know. I really don't know what's going to be the future. But our way of working... Sorry, can you hear?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah,
sorry.
Our way of working might change because we will have to be more technologically dependent, which is good and which is bad. It's always nice to chat with your colleagues, with your collaborators, with your staff, with your, with your architects. And it's good to bounce ideas off because everything is teamwork at the end of the day. Yeah.
Great. Bobby, you specialize in hospitality. What do you think will change in your design going forward with the situation?
1 plus 7?
I think that firstly, I'm optimistic that something good will come out. There will be a vaccine or a cure found. Problems have happened in the past several times, and it's not like, they've not found solutions. So I don't think we need to really change the world so drastically. What we need to do now is to probably find some temporary solutions to make things work. Hospitality will, of course, take a big, will go through some drastic changes for the moment. But we are hoping that in 2 years' time, things will be back to normal. It can't go on forever. But for now, I think cities will probably be less crowded. People will be afraid to go into densely populated areas. Probably highly dense areas might land up emptying out. As we can see, the migrant laborers, they moved out not just for a lack of work, but they were also scared. So people who live in places like Dharavi and the other slums might realize that it's not worth living there anymore. So there could be an exodus in the near future. But when it comes to hospitality, yes, there will be changes. People will, of course, stay in hotels, but the way they have their food, their breakfast, their check-in facilities, all that will change.
I hope things go back to how they were, at least to have the hotels and restaurants filling up again, because they've been the
Restaurants will get the biggest beating out of than the hospitality space in terms of room occupancies and all that might go back, but the concept of going into a packed restaurant will not be popular anymore. There'll be more of takeaways, room service, or if there are restaurants, the restaurants will perhaps have half the capacity now. Half the furniture would have to be moved out to have sufficient spacing between the guests. Waiters will come with gloves, masks, serving you food. The menu card will be something that's temporary, which is of a one-time use only. Concepts of buffet counters where everyone's using the same spoon, same serving spoons, or things like that will be thing of the past. So it's going to affect in a big way. But I can only hope that this is all temporary.
Yeah. Salil, what's life going to be in our metro? Is it not going to be a lot more vulnerable post the lockdown? As an architect, what challenges do you foresee?
Well, first of all, as a human being, it's been our natural trait as a species to be gregarious. So it's a big challenge. I think just for all of us to not meet each other and not touch each other and not be in close contact with each other. So I think that's the first thing that it's difficult. I mean, for our, it's one thing to be told that there's a lockdown for a certain duration of time and then it might get unlocked at some point. But if this is the new normal, it's almost like we need to we might have to change as a species, that we are not that we're not gregarious sort of collective, and we might have to actually become loners. So it's a scary thought. So I sort of sincerely hope that something a vaccine or something is found sooner than later that can change things. But as far as the city is concerned, and what has sort of obviously thrown up really badly in the way, at least, the most hit city in India, Bombay, and the most hit areas in Bombay are all the slums, is that, finally, I think we are, waking up to the reality of the fact that we've neglected these slums for the last so many decades, and it's just something that we've sort of always wished away, and, they've been all these half-baked schemes that are, pretending that they're trying to solve the slum problem. It's not moved an inch in relation to the amount they've grown by. So I think, I mean, I'd like to see at least that there is like a change of thinking in solving this whole issue of slums. It might take, I don't know, a decade to resolve, to transform them. But clearly, all the methods that we've used till now haven't worked. All the schemes that have been put together have miserably failed, and they need, we need to have some seriously, new and different thinking. Because, like Alan mentioned, I mean, it's everything that we do is sort of is a holistic thing. It's not about just the people who live in the big houses that run the city. I mean, you need every single individual that is here. This whole idea of a growth engine can only work if it's inclusive. And if we finally look at the fact that everybody matters and everybody needs to be given dignity and everybody needs to, sort of be treated actually as equals, is the only way we can sort of, I think, fight maybe future pandemics as well. And they're going to probably come to us, probably quicker than they have been. And that's the only way we can probably be ready, to make sure that every human being of this species probably has a good quality of life and has a, sort of access to better living.
So this is really going to be like a blessing in disguise that the government wakes up and said that we have to clean up the city, we have to clean up the slums and find a way of quickly reconstructing it, putting people in habitable, clean quarters. I hope that happens.
It's been there in the pipeline since ages. There's so many Bombay architects have made plans, but not been executed.
I do believe that the genesis of the way the planning was thought of, when they were linking it to real estate values, and someone gets a free house, which perhaps can afford to actually pay some amount of money to do it. I mean, we were trying to just, and suddenly they all just became real estate bonanza projects, where you were the entire sort of pot of the end, this golden pot, out of a real estate project was the way you were trying to solve social development issue. I mean, it's an infrastructure need to, these projects. I mean, they don't need to be linked with somebody else making a lot of money out of it. The land, so it's maybe you have to look at it completely differently, and be realistic about the fact that this is the reality of the nation. This is the reality of the way human beings are, and we have to help each other. I mean, there's no other way. And it's cross geographies, cross nations, cross cultures. That's the only way we have to help each other. So so if somebody's just going to sit there and think of the profit he's going to make out of a situation of any kind of sort of human misery situation, we're not going to find problems. In that way, there's only it's going to only benefit a few and not benefit the majority. And maybe we need to start thinking differently.
Well, Singapore had a similar problem not too long ago, and they cleaned up the whole city, and and they found a solution, and they did it quickly. And
and the thing is that they didn't sell the land. No, there's the thing. I mean, it wasn't somebody sort of floating a real estate project saying I'm making these sort of some fantasy houses, and waiting to earn money on it out of it, because he was trying to make money on the fact that there was a slum there. It was an infrastructure thing. That the way Singapore looked at it was that they were building for their population, and it was like the way we build roads or railways. You sort of have to sort of give these people dignified housing as part of infrastructure. It can't get exchanged, to say somebody gets rich because somebody is poor. So that's the way Singapore solved it, for example. So
as you said, it needs to be part of infrastructure. So they just need. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, we are willing to spend money, huge amounts of money, saying, 20,000 crores, something, 80,000 crores, some railway, some statue. You can look at the fact that you probably need the same amount of money, and you can rebuild this into very dignified social housing. It's a irony, that the project is called slum rehabilitation. But if you're actually involved in one of these projects, the discussions, not even 5% of the discussions actually talk about the rehabilitation. The 95% of the discussion with the client who's the developer is about the free sale and what a fantastic building we'll make and all the amenities that we'll create and he says, what about the slum redevelopment? And it's like something that he say, yeah, okay, we'll push it into one corner of the site, we'll put them into the little sort of hovels, and there's all and it's sad, no? So on one hand, we're trying to they want to build the central vista, across Delhi, 20,000 crores is what they're talking about. Probably for the same amount of money, you can rebuild the whole of Dharavi. You don't need to sell houses, to the so-called some rich people and some other royal families from some other part of the world is going to make money on it.
No, but as you said, why does the government need to give them free? These guys can
Oh, yeah.
And all they have to do is pay construction costs, and construction cost is 2,500, between 2,000 and 3,000.
It's a political game, no? Because I don't think the people that are saying that they want free housing. If they have access to affordable housing, they will pay for it. Dharavi has a turnover of billions, it's counted in billions of dollars. I mean, all our, there's huge amounts of stuff that we use every day in Bombay comes, is produced in Dharavi. It's not that those people, there's a difference between urban poor and the people who live in slums. They're not urban poor. They've got jobs, they have businesses, they run, sort of a whole bunch of production is comes out of there. So it's not that they're saying we want a free house. They don't, so it's a myth that has been sort of promoted to say, oh, we'll give you free housing, and now it's become like a political spin, because every time there's an election campaign, they'll say so many free houses you're going to build. But I mean, so it's a myth that has been floated and trying to sort of, string these people along, and it's really not fair. And now they're sort of in this festering wound that is killing them.
I think this gives me an idea for my next session. We try and bring on a couple of people from the government, like the housing secretary or secretary urban development or something, so that and get special slum architects or designers to come and interact here, so that I think that would,
I mean, I personally truly believe that they have to de-link this whole thing of real estate selling to convert the slum. I mean, the moment you keep the two together, it's always going to be, the guy in the slum is always going to get the raw end of the stick. Always. He's looked at to be the hurdle, So,
okay, we'll start with the presentations. Alan, will you show us your urban design that you've been
Sure. Just to conclude, I mean, to kind of, can you some lag here? Yeah. So density-wise, also the slums are dense only at a lower level. They're not tall buildings or whatever. Whatever they're going to be replaced with will be even more dense, because they're going to house more people there. So density is not the problem. It's the way they're living. 6 in a room, 10 in a room. They can't quarantine. This whole lockdown is a bit of a joke, because if one guy is sick, he's lying down, not alone in a room with 10 other people. So, I mean, it's pretty sad. I mean, if people got into the city, then there should be some kind of this thing. Anyway, so you'll see my stuff. So when we talk about work from home, it depends on two things. It depends on work and it depends on home. You need the home to work from, and you need the work to have, which most of the migrants don't have, which is why they want to go home and they can't go home. And the other thing, in the city itself, if you're looking at urban design, you have a home, like a normal person, like one of us, probably middle class, whatever. You have a house and you have an office, and then you need the transport in between. So that's the other sector, your connector. And then you're looking at certain other activities, like institutional activities. It could be sport, it could be school, it could be leisure, it could be parks. So these things kind of develop the city, and the city is more vibrant if you have all this shopping, retail, all that. So I'm going to try to share this, and I hope it works. Thank you for your help, guys. So just hope, okay, it works. Clear? It's good? Okay.
Yeah.
So life in I'll just call it making Bombay more livable. And keep it kind of short. So this is my dad. He started the firm. He's still active. And we basically do architecture. We're architects after all. We love nature. So you'll find it in all our interior projects. You'll find it in all our architectural projects. This is an interior in Bombay, for example. We like things pretty simple. Our thing is very connected with the outside. This is a project in Jodhpur. This is a gym in Bombay. This is another project in Lonavala. So we love bringing the outside in. There's a lot of interplay between the outside and the inside because we actually, as people, we like the sunlight and the time of day and the weather and, you know, kind of being connected with the outdoors. We're not like in the West where you're enclosed totally inside. So we design our spaces that way. So actually, whether we tackle architecture, interior, or whatever we do, even like the products in the interiors, we design it with the same thought process. And we tend to stick, it is, I call it simplistic, but then it sounds better if you say elegant. Clients find it very simple sometimes, you know, but whatever. You have to do with what you do. And we like connecting it because you should know at what time of day you are in which place you are, and you should be able to control the weather and the landscape elements to your design. So in this case, we've designed it completely around coconut trees, which we were allowed to cut. The coconut palms are allowed to be cut. But we designed this villa in Goa across completely around this. And we're very happy to have done this. It was more difficult than it looks. And it really means a lot when the site proposes and gives you certain kind of constraints. It's challenging, and it's something that's exciting. So we love natural materials. That's used largely in our work. And unfortunately, in India, most natural materials are not always eco-friendly or whatever. You have to look at the whole consumable energy part and all, but it could be. And of course, it's much better than materials that are not natural. And we love landscape. And this is something that runs across all our work. So this is something that we basically go for. So we design not just objects, not just architecture, but we design lifestyles for people. And this is true of all the other architects. I mean, all of you guys, you're all designing lifestyles for the clients. They don't know where they sleep, how they get up, all those things. So the houses become homes, the spaces become places, and hopefully we design for a better tomorrow. And we love our city. So we apply the same theory to the city. We say we must treat the city like our living room, like our dining room, like our entertainment room. Unfortunately, now with the pandemic, you'll have the social distancing and these other things to kind of navigate through, but still, we are social animals. We like to be with other people. And we've noted that the city is treated very differently from our private places. So we do a client's house, you go down and the city is like pretty crappy. It'll flood, it'll smell, you'll have all these other things. So we actually spend a lot of time out there. It's ironic that right now we're all spending time within our houses, but otherwise we don't really spend time in our houses. So the result is a very poor lifestyle because when you're out there, you're either in a traffic jam, you don't have a park to go to, you don't have clean air. I mean, these are very basic things, right? So we are thinking we can use design as a tool to improve the lifestyles of all the citizens. So we definitely do need a better city. And this should be considered basic and fundamental, you know, like from good roads to clean air to access to open spaces, because not everyone can afford a terrace, a garden, a balcony. I mean, Bombay doesn't even have balconies. It's a sad part. It should be like compulsory in the design, I think. Better transportation. So the city needs to invest in good design for all. And we are investing a lot. I mean, we as in the city is investing like some 200, 300,000 crores, I think, at that level. It's like crazy. So we definitely do need a better lifestyle. And this kind of illustrates it pretty well. This is a foot-over bridge, which is common in any kind of, this is a foot-over bridge at one of the stations in Bombay, suburban station. So it's akin to a chicken coop. We've always compared it to that. And now this is like a slide that's about 10 years old. It's pitiful, but I mean, I felt sorry for the chicken. I feel sorry for the people also. I was one of these guys here. And the whole bridge rocks. But this is how people cross east to west in Bombay, because the railways divide Bombay north-south. And as a result of which, it's a great divider. You know, you have these impossible east-west connectors, and people prefer crossing along the tracks. It can be disastrous, but this is the preferred way. It's banned now. And when the trains break down, this is the north-south movement. So we were looking at the transportation potential here. We designed this project called the Bombay Greenway back in 2012, 2013. We won an award for it. It was designed as an umbrella for the city, for the railway tracks. An urban umbrella, which is a linear greenway, carrying services, protecting the trains, controlling the flooding, because the roads have risen, but the railways have stayed where they are, right? So they flood. And you have like water harvesting and all these other things that you can implement. And one of the primary reasons for this was to save lives, because it was impossible to connect people, couldn't cross from east to west. And as a result of which, a lot of people lost their lives. So this is an example of Bandra station if it was revamped. And this is something that we are designed to save 4,000 lives a year. And this we proposed in 2012. 2014, Norman Foster, who's obviously very famous and does great work, proposed something similar over the London rails, which is similar to the Bombay rails. Not the metro, not the underground, but the rails, suburban, to save 14 cyclists, 14 lives a year. So that's the value of the life in the West, which is also the reason for the lockdown in Bombay, because at the moment, more kids are dying due to malnutrition and more people are dying due to TB than due to COVID. And India leads the world in terms of road accidents, 150,000 people a year. The numbers are staggering. We've only locked down in reaction to the West. It's good we've locked down. I'm not saying the lockdown is not good. I'm just saying that we could use this time to better address the other numbers also. You know, everyone's aware of coronavirus, but very few are aware of the other actual issues. Like 1 million under 5 children die every year. And that's been half from 2000. Every year, 1 million children die because of malnutrition. That's like sad. So it's crazy. Malnutrition is not even a disease. Anyway, the Bombay Greenway project was like this entire thing, 1,000 acres. And in Toronto in 2016, they came out with the deck rail project, 21 acres. Very similar illustration. We were totally flattered. And this is another illustration. To the right is the Toronto deck rail. Left is our Bombay rail at Mahalakshmi station. We were flattered because it looked so similar. The presentation was similar, and we were hoping it'll happen because it'll be a great template for our city. Because as you might know, the population of Switzerland travels every day in our railways. That's like 7.5 million people or 8 million. So in 1863, London led, and it was followed quickly by Paris. They built the underground, which as this overground board shows, it is underground. 151 years later, that's the station we built at Andheri, at Marol, I think. And if you look at the Bombay map, North Bombay, which is across the sea link above Mahim, the old Bombay. South is, North Bombay is like a foreign city. We've got tolls, we've got rickshaws, we've got overhead metro lines. South Bombay has the underground metro, toll-free coastal road, you know, like stuff like, and no rickshaws. I mean, like, why? I don't know, but whatever. So like different rules for different places, different rules for different people, you know. Happy I'm not a migrant at this moment. Very cool. This is DN Road. Now, this is the metro at DN Road. It's exactly in this orientation, but it's not been built like this. And this is an example of why we should be spending wisely. The metro at DN Road, if it was to be built overground, would look like this. And I don't think any, I think it's horribly ugly. And if you're an architect, you wouldn't even, no one will hire architects to even design a building because they won't even see the building. But this is the metro line. And this is if the metro station was there. Fortunately, this entire thing is underground. But this illustration shows you why you should not build overground. I mean, seriously, I don't know why, but whatever. And we've been losing, I can't show that, but we've been losing the tree canopy everywhere they've been doing this. They've been duplicating the main roads everywhere they've been doing this. This is another example at Siddharth College, if the metro had to be built above. So just to give you an idea of what short-sighted expenditures can do. Now, a case of bad planning. This is Mahalakshmi Station, Sat Rasta. And 1867 is Mahalakshmi Station. That's on the railway tracks there. In 2015, they built a monorail station. I don't have a point here, unfortunately, but I'll show it to you on the next slide. It's towards Arthur Road Jail in the north of Sat Rasta. 2019, they built a metro station by the same agency, MMRDA, built in a different place. So you end up with 3 stations in 3 different places. This is their plan, which of course doesn't have correct.
Excuse me, Alan,
Yeah?
I think we'll be short on time with 2 other people to go.
Yeah,
So
I'm just finishing with Mahalakshmi Satrasta only. So what happens is the 3 stations are at 3 different locations, and One was planned 150 years back. So I don't know. So the interchange is not taken care of. So here we've given a kind of a design solution. There are poor connections. There's going to be congestion along the whole space. And this is something that has to be thought of. The metro is underground. The monorail is overground. The railway exists. So this is a simple design proposal at Satrasta to interconnect the spaces and to get it closer together. So this is something we're proposing to the BMC, and we're hoping it'll get executed. Yeah. So I'll end it there. We've done this for other stations. So I'll just end it here right now. But basically, this Bombay Greenway project was supposed to kind of connect the city, give you a leisure space. Right now, it would be perfect. You could cycle up and down. You could run up and down all times, but more so now. Most of the cities have moved their roads into bicycle tracks because they want people to keep social distancing. At the same time, they don't want people to all move towards the car, which would be disastrous for the environment. So, yeah, it's something that we should look at because we have a density that we need to address well. So, yeah.
Alan, that was an absolutely amazing presentation. You're an amazing architect.
Thanks, Vivek. But the point is, if the city treats itself as a client and demands the best, they'll get the best of solutions. You know, they're paying top dollar. They're paying a lot of money for all these projects. They're just building them badly and very sadly. So the point is they should invest like private guys, you know, just like ask for the best, get a good architect, get good planners, execute it well. Spend our money well. That's my point.
You know, there is this new thing that the municipality has started is, you know, that they only appoint these very large MNC kind of corporations to sort of, you know, run these projects. And lots of times one sees across the board that most of the most interesting architectural solutions are coming from mid-sized offices, not the very large offices. And,
Yeah.
you know, it's the thing. So the thing is that
they can have competitions. They can do
yeah,
things. You know? I mean, it's like there's so much talent in the country.
Yeah, Citco used to run competitions, you know, for doing sort of nodes and this and that, which are open. And now for the last 15 years or 10 years, the bureaucrats have realized that, you know, I don't know, it's like everybody is very, you know, thing about saying, oh, I'm going to go to this big MNC, and those guys have managed to get their way through. And just, you know, and most of those guys they haven't grown up in Bombay. They don't live in Bombay. The commissioner of Bombay hasn't ever taken a BST bus in his life. He doesn't know what the city, you know, the life in the metro is really about. And, you know, so they're all very happy to be sort of backslapping with these big, you know, sort of black suited MNC kind of guys. And, you know, you're just completely losing the link with, you know, the people who, you know, who understand the way the city actually ticks.
Great. Can we move on to Bobby? And may I request you all to keep it around 10 minutes, because it gives us some chance to chat and gets chance for the attendees also, you know, to interact with all of us. Thank you. Bobby.
Okay. Hi guys. Vivek, you can hear me, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. As per the brief you gave as to life in the metro, what I did was I picked up some of the fun things that I've done in the 3 metro cities, the 4, but Bombay, Delhi, and Calcutta. So I covered those and stuff that we made in the neighborhood. I'll do it quickly. Now, this was the plan that I had first made that won us the Ambi Valley project. This was in the year 98. And as you can see, that time the land acquisition was around 6,000 acres and got further expanded to 10,000 acres. The blue patches that you see in between were the lakes that I created. So earlier, in fact, Ambi Valley was called Ambi Valley Sahara Lake City. And it was because at the bottom end of all these lakes are little dams that I had planned, and they went ahead and they executed these dams and resulting in these massive lakes. The central main lake is 1.5 kilometers long, and and the lake is constantly kept at a high level because the other right-hand side lakes, they're at a higher level, and they're constantly topping up the main lake. As it dries up, there's water released from the higher dams and higher lakes, and the water's maintained at a constant level. And we built all the roads around it, master plan, there's a golf course, we did the whole land use of the city. It's right now it's under a bit of trouble, but it's a 100-year-old plan, because whatever you've seen built has been made over the last 20 years, and it's got a long way to go. What's constructed is just a couple of thousand acres of land, whereas this land is over 10,000 acres. Total land mass is 10,000 acres. So here is that lake with the dam. We built a road over the dam. Those sail-like things you see, they're just an architectural decorative element on which lights are projected. But that's the expanse of the lake. When we filled up, I remember walking in the bottom of the lake before the monsoons. We had to cut some trees to prevent the water from getting dirty or having trees stick out of the water. And after the rains, in 4 days, the entire lake got filled up, and it took the shape exactly as per the drawing that we had made. And an island which showed up in our drawings, even that island emerged in the middle of the lake, which is not seen. It's kind of seen in this picture, so it's at the back. And yeah, from the other end, it looks like this. These are some fun architectural things that we're doing for some of the top builders in Bombay. That's for the Rahejas. It's a project in Worli called Raheja Imperia. So that's in this particular project, our role is essentially interior design, and we're not doing the architecture, but we're doing all the common areas within these two towers. So that's the entrance lobby. On the rooftop there is a lounge, a party lounge. There's a swimming pool on the edge with an infinity edge, overlooking the city. The ceiling there is a bit exaggerated. It's not that close, but we put that in for effects. And so we created this top floor. It's more of an adult club. Kids wouldn't be allowed here. They have separate kiddie pool at the ground floor level. That's the banquet hall, gym. That's another real estate project in the vicinity. Again, it's in Prabhadevi. It's called 25 South. The clients are Uptown and Wadhwa builders, and there are 3 towers. The architecture here too is done by Hafiz, but we're doing all the common areas, and there are 3 towers with 3 lobbies. So that's one of the lobbies. That's another one. A lot of usage of stone in all these projects. And the 3rd lobby. Lift lobbies. That's a ballroom on the 7th floor. We made it very rich and opulent, catering to high-end clientele that they plan to target as being the buyers for the flats in this project. It's got its own mini theater. Another experience center for their sales. This is a small project, but it's an important one. It's at Taj Land's End. There is the Atrium Lounge, Atrium Bar, which is extremely popular. It's one of the highest grossers in the city. Being a bar, it starts at 9 in the morning and ends at 1 beyond midnight, and it continuously does thriving business. It's actually a lounge, but it's designed to look like a bar, but there's big sales in teas, coffees, finger food, and of course towards the evening, beers and drinks. And then we made the backdrop. It's really long. It's like 50 feet long, 40 or 50 feet long bar, and becomes the focal center of the hotel. It's after the renovations, it's been doing excessively well. There's an Ambi Valley island that we had that was to have been made into a nightclub. It got it's half built right now, and it's a nightclub with like ramps around it for fashion shows, and there are steps going into the water, and purposely designed it such that people access this club only through boats. That's in the absolute central focal point of the whole of Ambi Valley, and at night it would look like this. There will be beacons of light shining up into the sky and lit up. The edge of the island would have this blue lighting under the deck, so it shines into the water. So it's sad that we were unable to finish it, but this was like the glowing lantern in the center of the whole city. Hoping for it to restart. Many of these parts of the structure are line ready. That's again for Raheja. It's called Raheja Exotica in Mud Island. It is a large resort, like weekend condominiums and villas, and we designed the whole central area, which all the common amenities, spread over 7 acres. That's the Infinity Mall for Sandeep Raheja. It's a large 1.3 million square feet mall, and it's one of Bombay's most successful malls. It's some of the projects are non-hospitality. Normally, we usually speak about our hospitality projects, but here are something that probably people might not know, that we design these kind of projects as well, which are probably not luxury projects but more functional. That's inside the mall, the atrium, the main entrance atrium. That's the Whistling Woods Film Institute, one of India's only film institute. We designed it for Subhash Ghai. It's done years ago. Now we come to Delhi. This was our first large 5-star hotel project, and we won this also in a design competition against some of the best firms in the world. And what you see in this picture is an 8,000 square feet painting. It's pop art that I painted and then converted into glass mosaic to be admired from the atrium. You see this picture has been taken from the 20th floor looking downwards. So the furniture that you see is over the glass mosaic flooring. This was used in the worldwide ad campaign and for Le Méridien. You've seen in many of the Condé Nast magazines worldwide. That's the entrance lobby with a large glass sculpture. It weighs 4.5 tons of optic glass, one of the world's largest glass sculptures. And the flooring also that you see is marble mosaic done by artists from all over the world. The backdrop was made by artists from Barcelona. The glass sculpture was made by a famous glass sculptor with the name of Stephen Gromley. But I designed these sculpture, and he's an American guy who put this together for us. It was our first interior large project, and it took us 4 years to do this job. And we had a budget of 350 crores, and this was also in the early 2000s. It's a grand lobby with all innovative materials. The flooring is made of white glass. The walls are made of white bleached wood. You know, the entire backdrop of the sculpture is an alabaster backlit, alabaster stone to make it look like a cathedral stained glass window, but we did it in stone. The design theme was art and tech, you know, and in those days getting colored lighting and stuff was very, very unique. We changed colors. This is the porch, the driveway, the all-day dining, the coffee shop of the whole hotel with sculptural columns made by CAD/CAM machines. On the first machines in India to have been brought in was used to making these sculptural forms. It was an extremely successful project where the hotel made a killing after the renovations, and that's what led us into getting several other hospitality projects after that. That's Taj Bengal. Here too, we did the renovations of this hotel and the guest rooms. We got inspired by the Calcutta colonial, you know, Bengal style of doing the interiors. So we made it more colonial than it was, you know, before the renovation. That's the Peacock Suite. It's got a theme of peacock. A lot of important guests stay here. That's the Satyajit Ray Suite, where we took a typical Rajbari style, which is, you know, Bengal nobleman's house, and artwork of his black and white movies and photographs of his time. Yeah, that's it for me. So I ran you through a few of our projects in Bombay, Delhi, and Calcutta. So that's all for me.
Bobby, that was amazing. Absolutely amazing. I'm sure everybody enjoyed what you presented. We move on to Salil and see, I don't know what Salil is going to show us out of his 170 lakh square feet that he's done.
I'm going to show something that is about the life in the metro. Let me just start this. I'll just, quickly run through, some of the work that the practice does in general, and then focus on a particular project that we did actually in Parel, some years ago. So I thought we'd just quickly get onto that journey. So I've been a Bombay guy always, so it's like you grew up in, in Bombay Scottish School, as you said earlier. I've had the privilege of actually being in the shadow of initially of the firm Gregson, Battery and King that has done a bunch of iconic buildings in Bombay. My father used to be a partner there, and it's a firm that if it had still been running, it would have been 102 years old this year. So, so there's some stuff at the back of me, which is legacy of the hand-me-downs that one has inherited in a sense, some old drawings and things of what was done in Bombay at the time. So they've done, for example, Bombay Central Station, the LIC building, etc., etc. I, of course, went to, did my architecture in Ahmedabad and some of it in Zurich. I came back and I wrote a thesis actually on Bombay, what is identified as an era of change between 1860 and 1890. At the end of, so that's where all the Victorian Gothic buildings of Bombay got built during that time. And interestingly, at the end of that era, they actually had a pandemic. We had a black plague in Bombay, and they actually set up this city improvement trust at that time, and they changed a whole bunch of stuff in the city post that. So it's something that maybe we can learn from 100 years ago. so this is where we've been. We started off on the left-hand top corner, our practice at the Standard Chartered building. So we've sort of sat in some of the nicer buildings in Bombay, in the deep south, Army and Navy building, and then of course it's in Parel, and then we've got our office now in Burley. So we've sort of traveled across the south of the city. And these are some of the projects that, we've done projects of different scales. We've done large planning projects and master planning projects that sort of have enveloped large acreage of area. There are projects that we are still, the Jamnagar staff housing township for the petroleum thing is something that we've been literally working on for the last 25 years now. From the time they, literally, from inception all the way down to today, there are, it's 880 acres today, and it's sort of still a little township now. So across the country, various different kinds of staff housing projects, sort of industrial campuses, etc., etc. Architectural projects ranging from corporate, medical centers, residential towers, sports clubs. So there is a sort of a story that's built up in the way we like to create our architecture and the buildings we make. They're very open, they're very simple. They have a lot of transparency. They sort of work with being. So then so you sort of work with smaller scale projects as well. Interiors, but those again are something that we've actually, for example, redone the school for the Bombay International School in South Bombay, where they moved to a like an old Parsi school, and so that we sort of helped them set up the new school there, and of course all kinds of other training centers and specialty projects as well. So, and of course we do, civic initiatives. We sort of started working on the Marine Drive Promenade in the mid '90s, and eventually was successful enough to get the MMRDA to actually pledge, a bunch of money on it. I mean, initially it was just being looked at as a footpath redevelopment. It took, 15, 20 years of, knocking on doors, talking to all kinds of secretaries, managed to get it part of the MUTP scheme, etc., etc. So sort of little bit of aside to Alan to say it takes it takes some beating. One needs to keep at it, get citizens involved, make them meet the chief minister, and sort of somebody one day will open the door somewhere. So it's something that we've sort of always enjoyed working. Including crematoria. We're trying to figure out how we can actually save all the wood they burn. People still want to use wood, but can we make it more efficient ecologically, etc., etc. So there are things. This project that I'd like to sort of present today is a project that is right in the heart of Parel. It's sort of just behind the ITC tower, behind Ashok Towers. It's this thing is a small little what we call in the office like these little shoebox projects. There are lots of vertical shoe boxes in Bombay, and you get the privilege of actually working on a horizontal shoebox is great fun. It's low rise. It was so it's something that we sort of inherited. There is typically what we think of Parel is all the new developments, and of course the Ganpati and everything that happens. But the way we sort of and then this is what we inherited. On that site there was another it was like these old warehouses that have been converted into sort of for various uses. It's like a gentrification of a certain of those parts. The FSI in a sense is fixed. You can't really build anything more. The plinth in a sense is a given. You can you get a volume to build within. And what we inherited was like this office thing which had like the double light studios right at the back. It was an office for MTV, so it was sort of done in this very decon sort of expressionist style. And the people that we were designing for were a client servicing sort of a tax consultancy. So they obviously this was completely different from the what they needed to have even as an image. So they obviously were sort of, they were happy to sort of strip the whole building down, and we had to recreate a completely new building of the same volume back there in the same place. So we obviously went for a walk around Parel, for example, and you sort of start discovering, some fantastic old structures there. I mean, the KM Hospital, the Wadia Hospital, for children, etc., etc. There's all these beautiful veterinary college. There are all these old beautiful stone buildings. And lots of times in Bombay, when we discuss, when we talk about heritage, we only seem to be talking about Ward A and B, South Bombay, and stuff like that. But there's so much more heritage in Bombay, in Baikala, in Parel, in Bandra, and places like that, which lots of times just gets neglected and sort of, gets passed over, or, completely disappears before one can even, sort of stop something from happening there. So we discovered a lot of these stone stuff, and we thought, there should be a reconnect, ultimately making a corporate office in Parel, and how can we sort of bring in, nuances of where we are, in this building. So, so this was, in a sense, some diagrammatic ideas of how it started. We had this double-height volume right at the back with these two sort of levels, one on top of the other. And there was this trapezoid shaped sort of a skylight in the center of this existing shed. So what we actually did was, and since we were not allowed to play with the footprint, we actually unwrapped that entire double-height volume and made it a linear volume rather than a rectangular block right at the end. Thing. And how that helped us was actually, it was on the east of the whole site, and it allowed a lot of sort of daylight to actually come along the length of the entire shed. So typically what happens in most of our modern buildings is that you have this big fancy atrium that you walk into, and then you go into whether it's any kind of building there, whether it's a residential or a corporate or hospitality. And actually, when you're in the places that you use, you actually don't even sort of have any connection with that wonderful atrium, with that wonderful light coming in, and you're like just stuck in this little drawer somewhere, at the back of the building. And that atrium is then just sort of a transit space. So what we thought is we have to democratize this whole sort of this double height, beautiful sort of space, and therefore we made it linear, and we made sure that everybody in the office can enjoy that double height and that light all the time. So, and then of course, when we started looking at the outside, we, sort of realized that we would like to use the stone that is there in that area, and looked at the way the windows were proportioned, and we started actually proportioning the stone to, the sort of playing with the proportion, the vertical sort of proportion of the windows in the way they fit into the facade, and, looked at sort of, then also clearing up for the most public areas of the office and the most semi-private and then the most private areas in the office, as you go away from the street. So it started emerging, and the plan sort of emerged as, all the partner cabins were on the extreme left and the double-height atrium was on the extreme right. And actually the general offices were sort of overlooking this sort of a linear street that sort of emerged in the plan of this. So, the atrium then actually became this double-height street. And in a sense, the best views of the atrium were for the general staff, and the partners actually, because they had their own cabins, were had the rear they were tucked at the rear end of the whole thing. And then of course we sort of stripped the entire existing building away, and slowly started bringing in for what was the original facade to make a more quieter sort of a insert into the locality, where the building starts becoming a much more quieter sort of insert in where the build, you can start seeing the windows sort of thing, and then you sort of had the glass facade on the western side started getting elements that would cast shadows on the glass, so it won't heat up, but still allow light to come in, and so that's slowly how it sort of happened. So that sort of emerged as a long sort of street. You sort of actually got places that you could interact from the atrium onto the street, and that was a place where you were we sort of encouraged the company to put up sort of public art. So even when you're walking by and stuff, you would actually be able to interact with it. Lots of times, which most of our buildings fail to do. We think. So this was sort of the drama that happened at the end of this entire atrium. We actually got space to create a little bit of an amphitheater. So it was something that, became a sort of a little plaza or public gathering space. They had their own lectures. We had, lectures there as well, things. So this was, in a sense, this is what happened in the center of the building where the skylight was, the existing skylight. And we planted a tree there, a ficus tree, which, was sort of can grow in sort of indoor light. And that became the tree of knowledge, as we called it. And so the entire library of the office was sort of developed under this tree of knowledge. So you could sit down under this Bodhi tree of knowledge, to sort of go referencing in the library, and you sort of got this beautiful light coming from on top, of the atrium, right in the heart of the office. So everything actually overlooked, right onto that. The back of the office is where we took actually the business center. So it was right way at the back. So that it suddenly had a completely angle of the entire space. Sort of you had got this sort of outdoor terrace. That all the business center meeting rooms and stuff were sort of linked up to. So this then, in a way, became the sort of new, this sort of a new insert into the, right in the heart of Parel. I mean, it was a building that sort of was, in a sense, straddling across being a modern insert, but at the same time, sort of really well behaved with what the history of Parel was, with all the old buildings in there, and balancing the two together, sort of thing. And I think, I think that the clients were happy. They still, they still call me and serve me some really good wine. So I'm, really happy that they're happy that, that we all sort of had this sort of thing together. So that's pretty much it.
Beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, I can imagine the working environment in there. It will be so much fun for
that was
inside. It's such a big contrast with regular working environments that Indians are used to.
It was a fun thing because they were a very corporate, tie and jacket kind of company, and they actually let us do this. So we actually started saying, let's put a black floor. There's so much of daylight coming in. You need to sort of have cut down the glare. We actually had karappa on the flooring in this sort of a rough texture, and all the sort of inlays that were sort of made there were, it was fun because you see the sort of inlays there were actually in locations where the plans had been revised. So these were the, where the original sort of, there were some, revisions made during design of the plans.
What was the inlay material?
There's all karappa stone. It's like a textured karappa stone, just a regular black
beautiful,
karappa.
Yeah.
And those were sort of glass inlays, actually reminding the clients that this is where your revisions had been made earlier. So that became the flooring pattern rather than any geometry. It was like sort of left some memory on the floor itself of the transformation of the design itself. So yeah, so that's the project. Yes, yes.
You have to take us all to see the place after the lockdown's over.
Yeah, we'll have a story about that. Yes, of course we will.
and wine.
Yeah, drink that wine.
Salil, the wine's on you.
Absolutely.
And Mumbai is full of such structures. It's full of old buildings, warehouses, and things, and whole city can be transformed like this.
Oh yeah, completely. I mean, years ago we had actually made and I think we should go and do this again. I mean, we made a presentation to CII many years ago when this Marine Drive project was being done, and we actually told them that every year CII and all the guys who are members of CII in Bombay spend thousands of crores on advertising every year. And they do their corporate advertising, make calendars and all kinds of stuff. Every year they do this, they spend money. And we are saying, give us 5% of that budget and we can clean up the whole city, and not just to 2 or 5 architects. You can give it to this whole sort of consortium. And you can clean up every footpath, you can make every roundabout, you can change the street lights. And that's something that will probably last 25 or 50 years, not something that they have to spend. So they spend this every year on you give them whatever space they need to put their little boards up, and it can be, there's enough money there. It's a matter of lots of time that people, maybe don't get the opportunity to be shown the direction. I think, so I think that's the challenge, and that's the fun of actually being in a city like Bombay. Of being able to knock on the right door. It takes time, but you do find right doors sometimes.
A question for Alan. Before we have the audience asking questions, Alan, what can we do to get an audience so that the plan that you presented for the city can somehow get implemented? I mean, it's absolutely amazing. What should we do? I mean, who should we meet? The chief minister, who has to be met, and what do we do? I'm sure you would have made your efforts to do all this.
Yeah, so the funny or not so funny part of the entire thing is there are a lot of alphabets everywhere, right? There's BMC, there's MMRDA, then there's MSRTC, MMRCL, which is part of MMRDA. Then you have some other things happening, PWD and this and that. And they're all autonomous, or they're working in isolation in silos, and they don't talk to each other. So if you talk to the BMC about the beach, they'll say, oh, but the PWD is doing that. Or it comes under the MMB at Carter Road and Bandstand, Mumbai Maritime Board. And they don't talk to each other. So in this entire blame game or non-communication, there's a lot of things that just get wasted. You know, all the efforts and everything else. So I think the systems have to be changed. People have to be accountable, and under a single system of design, a single system of transportation, for example, railways is under central government. Metro is under MMRDA. BST is under BMC. And until now, I think now the city and state are together in politics, but they weren't talking to each other. So it's a kind of a sad scenario where there's a lot of money, like Salil saying, there's a lot of money being spent. There's a lot of money in the corpus with the government. There's no reason for anyone to give donations. Actually, no one should give donations. We're paying taxes. That's very important. But the government has money, and it should be spending it wisely in the things that needs to spend on. So I think you need system change. You need some kind of vision thing. I don't know who to meet. I mean, you meet whoever, but sometimes the bureaucrats call the shots. Sometimes the politicians call the shots. Sometimes they don't talk to each other, so it doesn't work. I don't know. We've been trying.
Okay, we will make an effort. We will make an effort.
We should.
City of Mumbai. Anika, will you ask the question that people are asking, or do you want to let somebody into the room?
Sure. So we've got a couple of people wanting to come into the room. Rahul, can you allow Fussy in? Hi, Fussy. Sorry if I'm pronouncing your name wrong. Please ask your question.
Yeah, good afternoon to one all present here on the panel. My name's Fussy. I'm from Bangalore. I hope I'm audible.
Yes.
Yeah. So I'm a student of architecture. So my question is, since we've now been discussing about the pandemic as well, my question arises with how the migrant workers are moving back to their villages with the current scenario. So does this create sort of an opportunity for the decentralization of the rural urban cities, so that it could create, so if this decentralization of these urban cities has to happen, then it could create opportunities for these rural settings. So could we as architects, give systems which could be done in place with the help of government to create such sustainable approaches, to create a system which is in sync with both the urban and the rural, to create sort of a balance? Because this, if it were to happen, I see this as an opportunity where the cities are being decentralized and the decongestion is happening. This would end up in a sense of looking in the cities at a more systematical way of growing, and it could actually be maintained as we.
Question, if you can tell us what the question is so that somebody can answer it, please.
Yeah, so that's my question. So as architects, could we approach to these rural settlements and give better opportunities for involvement of the public and create sustainability of a system itself with the urban cities in place?
Who will take that?
Even if people are going back, one has to realize that, they may not stay there because there's basically, do they have sources of income where they came to the city because they wanted to earn money. So unless one creates sort of growth centers, everywhere, that they can actually, get a job, get employment, and have lead a decent life, and where they are itself, it would perhaps help. But if they're going to go back and there's nothing there, they probably will come, try and look for a job again. Maybe they don't come to Bombay, they go to some other city. But they probably will. So they're getting pushed out of where they are and they're getting pulled to these big, urban magnets. So it's like that sort of a tussle. And lots of times, that answer we don't have yet in India. So sometimes the politicians are very happy in these Mofussil areas to not develop, because they don't have to deal with having these guys go and work in the big town. And so it sort of works both ways. It's sometimes the push-pull thing has, unless that develops simultaneously, is not going to stop. So maybe we should stop calling them migrants and, maybe, give them the dignity of the fact that the guys are, call him, something else, call him an expatriate, call him, something that he's a citizen of this city. If you call him a migrant, you're sort of already taking away half his dignity away to say, he's just come here for a little time. So maybe we need to treat think of them differently.
Yeah. Anika?
We have another question from Vivek. If we can allow Vivek into the room, please.
Hi guys. Hello.
Yes.
Hi guys.
Hi.
Happy to see some good urban interventions and good architecture. I call that real architecture. After long, I could see that. My couple of questions. One to Alan. Alan, when you build over the tracks, as you've shown, two questions. One is, how do you manage the space between the tracks for your columns? Have you done the study for the structures? Because this is existing tracks and the railway movement will continue. So whenever you build this kind of an intervention, you will have to take three things into account. One would be the structure system, because you will need to dig your columns, have your frame structure between the tracks. Is the distance enough? And the second question is, what about the vents? Because the way you showed, you're covering a large part of the tracks. So there would be a huge need for vent. I know you have electrical trains, but on the same track, sometimes you have diesel trains and stuff like that. Don't you think you would need larger vents to be able to extract the fumes? That is
Vivek, hi. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. So first of all, good questions. Construction-wise, I don't think there's any problem. In terms of spacing, yes, in certain sectors, there would be a spacing issue, but columns can be spaced accordingly. So again, I don't see a problem there. Bombay, I think, is totally electrified, if I'm right. So the question of diesel is not there. However, whatever we proposed is not an enclosure. There are cutouts, there are skylights, and the sides are open. So it's basically just creating a top. It's creating a flat podium garden, so to speak, which we have across all the Bombay parking lots and other things. So construction-wise,
only thing is, because it's a very large area being consumed. And second,
yes.
on the same tracks, if I'm not mistaken, there are also regular trains that come.
No, not to my knowledge here. I don't think so, but that can be definitely worked out, because yes, national trains do run into the city, which is one of the cases. But having said that, whenever I spoke about this for the last 10 years, 12 people a day are dying, 4,000 people a year. They said, oh, we can't stop these trains. It's impossible. For the last 8 weeks, they completely stopped. Completely. For some people coughing. So, I mean, it's like interesting. But obviously, it can be done if there's a political will, if there is a need to do it, and if human life is important. The question is, whose life is going?
No, there is absolutely no doubt. It's a great idea. I was just looking at if it was to get converted into reality tomorrow. How do we deal with the architectural solution part of it?
Architectural is the easiest part. The thing is, it's government land. In my books, it's non-encroached government land belonging to all people. So it becomes easier. When it's non-encroached, you're not moving out any slums. There are no slums on the tracks themselves. They buy the tracks. Right. So we're not dealing with human displacement, which I cannot deal with. I mean, that's something that's too complex and too difficult to deal with. So I'm looking at all projects where the land is completely under some government authority. Sometimes it falls under the Airports Authority of India. Sometimes it falls under the BMC, sometimes Western Railways. So it's a question of who is managing it. To build a bridge across the railway tracks here, I think Milan at Santa Cruz, they built the bridge. The bridge is 2 lanes wide in the east. It's 1.5 lanes wide in the west. It narrows down on top of the tracks. It took 8 years to build because the railways didn't give permission to the BMC to build it across. Right now, also one bridge has fallen at Elphinstone and they are repairing it. Hancock Bridge is being repaired. So there are these things that are happening now during the lockdown and stuff. But the point is, if it has to be done, if it needs to be done, it can be done. Architecturally, it's easier. It can be even better than what we planned.
Do you have a funding solution in place? I mean, how does the city fund this entire thing?
It's very, very easy. We are spending 20,000 or something crores on the coastal road, which is going to be toll free for under 1% of the population. So, I mean, if they can work out the funding of that, this costs about the same. So it's easy. It's going to serve like not just 40,000 people or 100,000 people a day. It's going to serve about 8 million people a day. So, I mean, some magician has to say, hey, 8 million people is more than like 100,000 people. Maybe it's worth it, you know?
I mean,
it's not expensive.
Vivek, if you're ready to spend 80,000 crores on a bullet train where you don't have trains to take your migrants back to where they want to go, you know, I mean, we are so happy to spend money for completely the wrong thing. And then we're saying we're a poor country and we were spending, you know, sort of, a king's ransom for stuff that nobody needs.
The Metro 3 is 30,000 crores now, 23,000 crores. The other metros are all about 10,000 crores. We've got the money.
It's sad that a good idea gets asked for, how you're going to fund it. Whereas the crazy ideas, like, you know, when they build all those silly skywalks everywhere and ruined
true that.
Nobody asked who was making it, why they were required, whether
the skywalk
people are going to use.
The MMRDA made the skywalk, Bandra East. MMRDA made the skywalk. MMRDA broke the skywalk because MMRDA is building a bridge now to Kalanagar.
Yeah, Nana Chowk. I mean, it was such a beautiful public square, and they're just going to completely, you know, there's this spaceship that is there. It's all dark now. Nobody goes up. I mean, who asks questions then to these people? Like, you know, nobody gets, loses his job for it. There is no strictures on anybody to say who was given permission to, do these silly interventions in the city like this. And then
Salil,
yes, Vivek.
Compliments to you for a lovely project. I mean, it's really a great intervention to look at in Bombay. Do you think these kind of public spaces, I use that word very often nowadays, blasphemous, we find it blasphemous to allow commercial activity in these, but because we are not, if we sensitize people to very, very, if that's the word, dignified way of using that space commercially to generate revenue for island's intervention, we can actually have that as a hub for a lot of recreational activity within the city. Why can't we think of this as an alternate Azad Maidan? Why can't we think of it as an alternate? Because what Ellen is creating is large tract of land.
Vivek, you're absolutely right. I mean, if you look at Bombay City, this long island, and it's interesting is, and this has been said before, I'm not the first one saying it, that the beaches of the city, mostly on the western side, are all like the verandas. And all these maidans in the middle of the city are like the chalk, the courtyards. So this is when you see that in the evening, when as it gets cooler in the evening, everybody from all the sort of small houses and congested parts of the city are actually come down, and go like that you would do in a big house. You come onto the Maidan, then you go onto the beaches, just to get some fresh air again. And what Alan is proposing is something would become like this, the biggest Maidan in the city, which is like 60 kilometers long, connecting like right through the core of the city. Yeah. You would have sort of,
So it could be self-funding. It could be self-funding also then.
Absolutely. I mean, I don't think it's a problem. I mean, today when there's, easily self-funded. I mean, I don't think there will be
the stations could be redeveloped and pay for everything.
Yeah. So I don't want to miss this juicy opportunity having 3 urban designers sitting here and ask you a question. You guys, as luck would have it, you are all from Bombay, so you tend to grapple with the situation. As an outsider, I come to Bombay and I every time suggest like a novice, why can't you reclaim more land in Bombay? You always are pinched for land, and then you talk about CRZ as 500 meters, 200 meters or 300 meters. What if you reclaim land? I'm saying reclaim 1 kilometer inside, leave 1 kilometer of CRZ land, and that 500 meters, sell it at the most preposterous prices.
No, Vivek, just
Why can't you do that?
Quick, not rebuttal, but question is that the purpose of this reclamation would be for what?
Both give you more land to breathe, to have all these.
Okay, so since you're saying more land, let me tell you, currently as we speak, more than 30% of the entire land in Bombay is actually completely empty. 30%. Even today, as we speak. So, like I've said on another forum before, there is a myth created that the land in Bombay is scarce. The entire BPT area of Bombay, the entire, who are the biggest landowners in the city? We have huge amounts of land.
Salil, you'll be consuming land. You'll be consuming that vacant land. I'm saying create land.
But Vivek, the unfortunate thing is that this land that is being done now, even for this so-called BPT scheme, the land is not being done as a social, transformation. It is again being plotted and auctioned to the highest bidder. So at the end of the day, you'll still get, and there'll be more ads saying, oh, the new Manhattan, the new some Shanghai or something. I mean, our land planning and our land usage itself is the biggest.
I tend to agree. I think there's enough land in Bombay. It's a question of how it's planned, how it's distributed, and how it's managed. That's all. If the government actually treats itself as a builder, like the most, not corrupt, but the most profit-driven builder, it'll still come out with better projects. And housing prices will fall, for sure. It's this whole inflation, giving it to certain segments, only kind of, making something scarce. Slums occupy a large area. Density is low. Density is not high. We'll say, oh, density in Dharavi and all. It will be the excuse to remove Dharavi. It will be the excuse to have more cars on the road. It'll be used negatively in Bombay. Just see. It could be used very well. In Milan, they've moved to cycles. In London, in Paris, they've accelerated all plans. India has the same density as the Netherlands.
Alan, my take was different. I'm not talking about utilizing land in Bombay. I'm trying to create more convivial land. We know universally beach sides are more convivial land. They fetch larger price. They would everything. So I'm trying to create for the entire population of Bombay, they move to the beaches. I'm saying instead of the 300 meter or 500 meter CRZ, create 1 kilometer of CRZ. Create that lung of the city into those convivial lands, and then move the rest of the city can remain as it is. And that 200-300 meters or 500 meters, which is now the CRZ, sell it to the highest bidder and sell it at an exorbitant price so that you can recover the cost of reclamation. And this is a solution. Your 300 acres or whatever you are saying of that BPT land still remains vacant. You are redensifying the whole city.
Guys, just 1 minute. We are completely out of time, so we'll have to take this offline now. Sorry.
No, but it's pretty nice.
Wait, I need to also hang up. I need to get on to another one. So I'm getting calls.
So 1 minute. So what we'll do is that Vivek brings up some very interesting points. So whenever he's in Bombay next, I'm going to call everybody home and we're going to have a session together.
Looking forward.
Sure. Thanks for that, Vivek. Yeah, thanks. Yeah. Okay, guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Thanks, Vivek.
Still have a couple of questions that we can take at least for Salil and Alan, even if Bobby is getting out, because there were some people who were waiting. Anika, do we have any questions that we can take?
I think one of the main questions that is coming up is, everyone's talking a lot about these issues right now because we're going through this pandemic. But how can we ensure that these discussions and resolutions are not going to be forgotten and we won't go back to our old ways? How can we be sure that this doesn't happen again?
So sweet.
As you know, it happens every 100 years. So we'll be done with it in the next few years, and then life will be back to normal. Nothing really changes. Like, all sorts of pandemics, big terrorist bombings, whatnot has taken place. It's just a matter of time that it's all forgotten.
It's true.
So let's just be
No,
optimistic.
I'm not. Yeah, I think something will come out of it. I think people are already, moving in the background, trying to create something that might become something like a new version of a Bombay Improvement Trust. I think, this
Slums around is hurting a lot of people, including the politicians. It's hurting people. I mean, I think they're going to, I can't believe that they're just going to, be able to push this under the carpet if once things so-called become normal again.
Right.
So I am optimistic that something will emerge out of it, which might change the way things happen over the next 10 years. It may not happen immediately in the next 10 months.
In Hindi they say, "Aapke muh mein ghee shakkar."
Fingers
Okay,
crossed.
bye guys. I gotta go. Take care. Bye.
Bye.
Bye, Bobby.
Thanks. See you, Bobby.
Hey guys, Bobby, thank you very much. It was very engaging. It was amazing to have the three of you there, and it was a lot of fun. And after lockdown is over, we have to all get together.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you,
Bye.
Vivek.
Thank you
Bye.
so
Having
much
us.
again.
Bye.
Thank you so much.
Bye. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, Anika.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.